live streaming should be starting shortly.
It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item will be roll call.
Brown.
Here.
Carr.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Murphy.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Yeah.
Here. This item will be the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we'll have a moment of silence for the first responders on 9/11. Take a motion to approve the agenda. You've got a new agenda there, and under unfinished business, CD maturity was the addition.
I would make the suggestion to move the district attorney up maybe after public comment since he's available, and that way he can do other things if he wants to.
That's fine. Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Everyone's had a chance to view those previous minutes. There are no additions or corrections. They'll stand approved as presented. Council visitors, we have Faith Enos from Democrat. There was no public comment sent in, so we can move on to the district attorney. Page 26. And he's available for any questions or. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm sorry. I didn't know if you want me to jump right in there. So good evening. My name is Frank Flaspohler. I'm a private attorney in Fayette, Missouri. Not too far away from Sedalia. We get down there for the state fair. We show cattle every year. So I think I've been in touch with your board maybe a couple years ago because we do a lot of my original office did a lot of ambulance collections for different districts. I've also practiced with Mr. Foster, who of course passed away in August unexpectedly. Frank and I had the opportunity to work together on quite a few cases over the last several years. We had numerous discussions about whenever he was ready to retire, taking over his practice, and I'm glad for him that he got to practice and keep doing what he loved right up to the end. So I know that was very important to him. I don't know what questions you guys have for me. I've been in private practice for about 12 years. I've done a variety of civil cases. As I said, for the last couple of years, I'd partnered with Frank on several different cases involving the creation of districts, review of documents, and some different lawsuits that different districts were involved in. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. I think letter indicated Frank had appointed me as his trustee under the Missouri Supreme Court rules to follow up with all of his clients. I am more than happy to continue representing the Pettis County Ambulance District under the same terms and conditions that Frank was representing you. I'm not sure off the top of my head when your term expires. I know that Frank had renewals all throughout the year. So whatever renewal or whatever retainer fee you had previously paid Frank for that term, I'll be happy to honor. And then if you want to retain me after that, I'd certainly be consider it a privilege to continue to work with the Pettis County Ambulance District. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
I do. Frank, looking back on what you've been exposed to, gives you an opportunity maybe to project forward. What issues or concerns, if any, do you foresee in this area of work?
So in addition to being an attorney, I have been a licensed EMT since 2002. Mondays, actually, our district here is so short on people that typically on Mondays, I still cover a shift for the Howard County Ambulance District. I think staffing and personnel will probably be one of the biggest hurdles that districts have going forward. I don't want to say it's easy to train EMTs because even that takes time. But EMTs, and I'm one of them, so I don't have anything against basic EMTs. But EMT basic is not really the standard of care anymore. And so not only do we need EMTs going forward, we need well-trained medics because paramedics are really what provide the standard of care. I know that's something that a lot of the districts I've talked about or talked with have been struggling with. I know that's something that Howard County is struggling with, how we can recruit and retain good EMTs, but especially good paramedics so that we can provide high quality care. Of course, there's other issues that underlie that, funding and taxes, being able to afford equipment that the general public typically does not understand how expensive it is to buy an ambulance or a stretcher. Howard County here locally recently had to pass a tax increase, and we had several people write in with letters to the editor saying that $15,000 for a stretcher was ridiculous. And it probably is, because I don't know that you can find any stretchers now for $15,000, but they thought it was ridiculous the other way, that you should be able to get that stuff much cheaper. So I think our public perception for EMS and being able to continue to raise the funds that we need to and the personnel that we need to provide the care to our patients is really important going forward.
Regarding personnel, do you see a trend or is it just always been there for concerns about suits for wrongful dismissal and discrimination and workplace harassment, things like that? Are those cases going up, or have they just always kind of been around? Something that we would need to be especially on guard about?
So I don't think that they have increased necessarily in the last several years. I think that they've always been an underlying concern. And, Missouri has a pretty fair system, I'd say, set up with, before you even file a claim for discrimination, you have to start with the Missouri Human Rights Commission. And the Missouri Human Rights Commission will try to mediate between the employer and the former employee. Of course, some people get a lawyer and they can't skip over that process, but they can push it through a little bit faster and end up in court. But I think that that's something that has always been the case, just always been a concern for employers. And I don't think that that's something that is limited just to EMS. I think all employers struggle with that.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Why the term district attorney? It's on the agenda.
That's just the word.
Pettis County District Attorney.
Yeah.
Okay.
The attorney for our.
Because I'm used to
ambulance
prosecutor.
attorney.
So,
No other questions? No. Well, for no other questions, I will take a motion to approve this retention.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you guys very much. I look forward to sometime meeting you in person and certainly working with you in the coming year.
Thank you. Move on to the officer's report, the chief's report.
So, working back on page 6. And I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record, as July was the record month. Well, now August is a record month. 576 is the most total transports County Ambulance District has ever ran. Wasn't even close. So 20 calls actually over July. Total call volume stayed about the same for the month, but our transports increased significantly. They've been very, very busy. Really nothing else jumps out at me on those numbers. Windsor, a little above average, so a fairly busy month down there. And non-transports, all the other categories, like I said, no surprises, everything's staying pretty well where it has been. I did notice that there was a lot less invalid calls from dispatch this month, so that's always a good thing. But everything else looks pretty normal, just very busy. Moving on, if nobody has any questions about call volume. COVID contacts have remained steady, and our numbers kind of lag behind the county's numbers as far as total number of cases, known positives and so forth. But last month we did have 25 known positives and 4 suspected likely. We're still doing all the appropriate PPE and preparation and decontamination when needed on those calls, of course. So no issues there. No operational changes. We did get finally, it took, I think those have been on over almost a year now, the McGrath video laryngoscopes that were ordered last year. Those are light years beyond the ones we had on about half the trucks, which were actually the ones we had gotten at the very, very beginning of PCAD. The McGrath, basically a paramedic, when they go into intubate, they have just a metal scope. It's basically a big metal tongue depressor with a light on it that they get in and intubate. But the fact is once you're in there, you can't really see what you're doing. The video laryngoscopes make that process tenfold easier. They get in there and they can actually see the tube passing through the vocal cords and really see it go into place. And there's much less risk involved. They work fantastic. So we were very, very thrilled to have those. I did go ahead and order, we keep those in I think a $50 or $60 Pelican case. So they're well protected. Once we do have them on board, we haven't had any issues since we started using them. We've started using them rats themselves, I want to say about 4.5 years ago. So we've had them in service, the ones we've had, no issues, and I don't anticipate any issues moving forward. So very, very happy to have those. No work-related accidents pending. I did want to give a brief update on the other 2 units, though. We've had Unit 11, that was the one that was in the accident out on East 50 Highway. As everything is going with production these days, it's taken quite a while to get back, but we are going to pick it up tomorrow. So that'll be it's in Columbia, and we will grab it tomorrow, and it should be back in service right away without any issues whatsoever. Unit 2 is just another ambulance we had out. It died on a, obviously while it was out and about, we had to have it towed, and it is awaiting parts, as again has been the case with just about everything lately. A battery junction box is what was missing, so nothing real major, but without it we're stuck. So that's awaiting repair. Other than that, we'll be very, very happy to get the 11 back. We've had several days where we had 0 backup units and really had to shuffle to keep things going, keep everybody in service, and keep everybody in a unit. So it'll be really nice to have that backup unit on board. As you can see in the mileage down below, that Unit 1 has been probably used as a backup more than the others, and the mileage has slowly been creeping up on that. So we try and keep it, we try and ginger it as much as possible, but it has been getting some use lately because of that. The shrubs and growth was removed around the Windsor station. If you've been down there and had a look, we had just some, I think they might have been boxwood. They were so grown over and not doing very well, just made the station look pretty ratty. Windsor Ambulance District paid to have all of those removed, as well as some other growth around the garages down there. And they also went through the power wash to the entire building. Roofs, everything down there looks really nice. It's a really good cosmetic improvement to the station, as well as probably keeping some critters out of the windows and so forth. Utility issues, no problems. We did have some issues with our mobile CAD computers, the updates to that system. This is something that occurs fairly regularly, depending on the size of the update. It's no different than your home computer. Or once in a while, you get one of those stubborn ones that doesn't want to take hold. So this one, instead of taking hours, took about 2 days to finally get all the kinks worked out of it, but it did get worked out. Without it, we kind of just back up a couple decades and go to old school dispatching, to where things have to be written down and called out over the radio. So it slows things down a little bit, and it didn't cause any major issues in operations. Henry County and Windsor ops have been affected by area outages. Again, nothing that we really had any control over. There was actually several areas in the central southwestern region of the state that were knocked out. I think there were fiber optic lines that were cut inadvertently during construction or road repair or something to that effect. But that did affect everything down there. But again, we just relied on our old standby radios to make all that communication possible. Activities. There are several things on here. I know we just passed a milestone on September 11th once again. Some of us actually were working EMS that day. I'd gotten off that morning and woke up to what I could not believe before my eyes on September 11th. And now here we are in 2022, a couple decades later. It's pretty interesting to see all the changes in EMS. But I did want to thank our area agencies, two in retrospect, and one is coming up on the September 17th, somewhat related to the September 11th. The Moose Lodge gave a dinner for first responders on the 11th. Unfortunately, we did not have any crews that could go attend, because just as everybody was getting ready to go, we all go on call. So Murphy is alive and well and working in Sedalia, Missouri. Likewise, that happened at the Windsor base. There was a church down there that was having an appreciation dinner, and they also ended up running calls and unable to attend. So I think there's some goodie bags that are going to be delivered to the crews, but we really appreciate their efforts to show support for their first responders. September 17th, Pettis County First Responders Family Appreciation Day. I have all the state representatives, Lieutenant Governor, and other reps and senators down there. They're holding an appreciation dinner over at Centennial Park for our crews. So there will be several of us over there. I know I'm going to be there off duty, and we will definitely get some people there. I don't know, we'll try and get the on-duty crews go, but again, Murphy. So we really appreciate that. And that's not just EMS, that's all of our area first responders, fire and law enforcement, and dispatch, of course. Media relations, we've been doing quite a few public presentations. We've given, I gave a presentation to the Pachyderm Club and the Rotary Club. We have a Lions Club presentation pending for tomorrow. Justin Cross is going to be doing that one. And yeah, it's nice to get out and see people's faces and talk to those organizations. We've had great reception at both of them, and just kind of letting them know where PCAD is and what's going on in the district. So that's been nice to get out and do that. We are working currently with Bothwell. I think I might have mentioned this before to the board, but that's getting closer and closer, as in about a month away from doing some of this time critical diagnosis, trauma, STEMI, and stroke education for our mostly trauma, but that education will be for area first responders. PCAD is actually involved in teaching some of the classes, and I'm proud to say that we are going to be sponsoring the CEU credits that are given out for that event. So if you attend a certain class, we'll issue a certain number of CEUs appropriate for that class, and we'll have all of the paperwork and issue the actual certificates for it. So it'd be nice to have our label on those and be a part of that event. We also have been working on some blood and blood product administration. Some people may or may not realize that, paramedics actually do transport patients with blood hanging. They do not initiate blood. We certainly couldn't carry it. It's a very, very intense procedure that requires a lot of administration, but our area hospitals, Bothwell, 99% of the time, would be the ones starting those infusions. Paramedics will continue those transfers en route, continue that transfusion en route rather during the transfer, as well as hang additional bags as needed. So we're trained to monitor, we're trained to hang all those additional bags. And generally those are the worst of the worst patients, most often trauma. But at any particular type of patient that requires those blood products to be given, we have the ability to continue those. We don't have to stop them and cause that patient any harm during transfer. So we've been working on some procedures because, as you can imagine, every unit of blood has to be meticulously tracked and timed as when it starts, stopped, any complications. There's a lot of stuff that has to be done. And it's sometimes kind of hard to keep track of that when you've got a very sick patient and 2 different hospitals to deal with. So we're working out some procedures to get that done in the most easy and understandable, thorough process. We do have some other education events that we're going to. The Missouri Ambulance Association, the Fall Supervisor and Leadership Seminar. I've mentioned this to the board before, but I don't think I included what all was going to be talked about. I'm really excited about this one because just about every one of those topics that they're discussing is something that affects pretty much our day-to-day operations, whether it be administrative or investigative. As far as supervisor wellness, just a lot of really neat topics I look forward to seeing. That'll be the end of this month, 28th and 29th. The peer support training is being done right now. They're holding those classes for area first responders that are taking that class. They're actually doing that over at the State Fair, the Sedalia Fire Department training room. And that's a 3-day class, peer support training from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Those are full-day classes, so they'll wrap that up tomorrow. I'll probably talk fast because I've had some caffeine. So any questions so far?
I would add that the PCAD was at our Lions figure 8 race on Saturday. It was our biggest event in the 10 years we've been doing it. They had 50 drivers. They also had a demolition derby in the middle of the figure 8 between heats. And if you see those cars going the speed they go and stuff, you know why there needs to be an ambulance close by. But I think it went off without anyone getting hurt, because I didn't hear or see the ambulance take off. But I know that whoever was on the ambulance duty was watching.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they probably enjoyed the
You
crashing.
You can't not watch that. I'm assuming the demolition derby was intentional and not accidental. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Anyway, Lions Club appreciates PCAD being there.
Yeah.
They've done it every time we've asked them to.
Great. We're happy to be there, especially
I have
for charity events.
Question
like
on
that.
number 2,
Number 2.
the education, number 2, political
Oh, yes.
administration.
Yes, sir.
Is this cutting edge stuff? Is this something we're doing that others typically don't?
Cutting edge, not necessarily, but definitely rare in EMS. And that's primarily because of our location geographically. Most of the larger ambulance services that have progressive protocols such as ours are in urban areas where they don't have to do transfers of patients that's sick from hospital.
So
to
we're
hospital.
talking somebody, a car wreck, needing blood going all the way to Columbia or something.
It's some sort of internal bleeding that's causing that. Yes, sir.
So I see the advantage to that. What are the potential downsides to taking on that liability?
It really, there isn't any for us. The downside of not doing it would be far greater. Typically, the only thing that will happen is either a mechanical problem. I've had the actual bags come apart before for whatever reason. But most often when blood products get discontinued in our care, it's because of the potential allergic reaction for the patient. And that's thankful.
So it's just a matter of making sure everybody's appropriately trained and doing their best.
That's it.
Okay.
So the blood's typed, the blood type is done by the hospital, cross match.
Typically,
And that's
yeah,
goes to the lab, we need to do that, but you don't have on the ambulance.
right.
And then,
There are some pre-hospital providers that actually carry blood, but we're talking about middle of Nebraska type areas. Some flight services, I know MU3 carries blood. They carry O negative, which doesn't have to be type or crossed. So it's a universal donor, of course, anybody can have an O neg. But again, there's a lot of little safety mechanisms that have to be in place for that to happen. And the blood itself is very, very expensive, of course. But yeah, most of the time in the hospital, they're at least typed and crossed by the lab before we ever get there. Only the most serious, get out of Dodge right now patients. Get
So we're not sticking our necks out doing this?
No, sir.
Okay, that's all I want.
Nope. No, we just, we want to make that process as comprehensive as possible with the hospital, because like I said, they're responsible for tracking all that. So we get to have all the fun and they get to do all the paperwork, basically. Yeah.
I saw you had just culture in your education.
Yes.
That's the hottest topic because we're doing that too.
Yeah. We've been talking about that in EMS. I know for at least, it's been a pretty hot item for as long as PCAD's been around. We started doing training on that all the way back in 2013, and that continues on. So yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, hopefully that answered your question. Let's see. We have the local 5229. I put agenda items in case we have any purchases or contracts there, but that's nothing. Met with the local 5229. We basically just had a meeting regarding PPE usage. Specifically, is everybody using the appropriate PPE mechanisms at the, or devices, I should say, with the appropriate patients. I've been auditing them throughout the month. We agreed to do a month follow-up. But I was very happy to see that there are people who are using all of the stuff that the district has bought for them, including the PAPRs. That was one of the things didn't know how much they get used when we first bought them. I know they're very appropriate for very sick patients, but actually there's a lot of people who do use them on a fairly regular basis. So they are getting some use. Everybody that loves them. They actually, during the summer, they're kind of nice because it's like wearing an air conditioner on your head. So it blows cool air in all the time. But all of the stuff we have is being used and used appropriately. And if there's any issues, we're going to meet with the union towards the end of this month. Actually next Monday is our 4-week meeting, just to kind of follow up on that. There was also some suggestions as to different types throughout the last 2 years, specifically the N95 respirators. Anybody who's painted knows what those are. Well, anybody who's been alive the last 2 years knows what those are, but there's a different type of N95 for every day of the week. So, and everyone's face is different. So we talked about, do we have the right stuff? Do we have the right items that fit people? And there was a few concerns they had as far as availability of products, which we've remedied just by simply ordering different types of masks. So no problems.
Do you have somebody that does the fitting for this?
Yeah. Lance Dempsey, one of our battalion chiefs, safety is kind of in his bag, and he's been fit testing everybody over the last probably 2 weeks, and that's an annual for that. Okay, employment. We did some interviews. I said this week, we did a couple interviews last week, but I'll give you some updates as far as how the outcome of those in October. No decisions have been made just yet. FMLA, we do still have one paramedic on light duty. I talked to that individual yesterday, and he's possibly going to be back in 2 weeks, potentially 4. So a little bit longer, but we don't want anybody coming back to work too soon and getting hurt. So we'll be happy to have him back when he does get fully released. And unfortunately, we did have one EMT who I called and asked if I could mention this publicly. He didn't have any problem with that. I had an EMT who was in a pretty nasty accident here in town and ended up breaking his hip, a lot of the bones around his hip, pretty severely, as well as some other areas of concern on his legs. So he is going to be out for a long time. He's been here since the very beginning. Adam Ali, he's an EMT. He's been a fantastic employee, very, very low maintenance, if any. And we all wish him a very speedy recovery. He is back at home, getting around on a walker, but not doing lovely for quite a while. He's not going to be able to put any weight on it probably for at least a month or 2. And then he's got a long rehab after that. So he'll be out for a while. And I've assured him that, he's got home with PCAD. So we're here for him. I believe no promotions, demotions. I will be out of town, unavailable for the PCAD board meeting on September 27th. And when I get back in town on the 28th, I'm going straight to the training at the MAA. So if there's any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out and contact me in the meantime. That's all I have.
That gentleman that was in the accident.
Yeah.
Was that a PCAD accident?
Yeah, he was ultimately flown up to Kansas City.
It was
His
not.
personal, this is personal vehicle.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yes, that was a FMLA. It was off. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, pretty, well, they happen as quickly. That's why they call them accidents, but it's a shame, but we're lucky it wasn't worse, of course. So,
Are there any other questions for her? Now we'll move on to the CFO.
My report starts on page 9 with the sales tax receipts for this month. They are down again over last year. Overall for the year, we're up $117,934, about 4.4%. I know there were some questions when I was going about the fluctuation in the sales tax, and a lot of it, I think, has to do with the due dates changing. They changed the due dates from the 20th of the month to the end of the month, which then pushes stuff into the next month. So I think that's why we're seeing this up, down, kind of cyclical changes in the sales tax. And then, of course, at the end of the quarter, we're always going to see more because of quarterly filers. So, any questions on that? All right, page 10 starts the budget performance year to date. This is as of July. I'll have August next meeting. This is left over from the last meeting where I was gone. So total operating revenue, we are up almost 10% over budget. A large portion of that is that providing relief fund payment we received, but even without that, we're up about 3% over budget. You can see the highlighted items there. We'll go into more detail on the next couple of pages as far as the yellow ones that are over budget. But overall, total operating expenses are below budget at 81.78%. Any questions on that? Page 11, you can see there that the ambulance operations where we're over budget is our vehicle fuel and our ambulance and vehicle maintenance or repairs. As those ambulances keep getting older, it causes more and more repairs, so keep getting more and more expensive, it seems like. So everything else is looking good. Total insurance is under budget. Wages and salaries are right on target at 57.56%. Should be about 58%, so we're there. Total employees slightly under budget. Tip expense, I highlighted that one. That was due to a vendor reporting wrong for a couple of years and getting fixed for this year. So that one is just going to kind of be an outlier for this year. Everything else looks good. Total operating expense again under budget. Still looking good there. Any questions on any of those? Page 15 is just the capital expenses so far year to date that we have acquired. And then page 16 is our balance sheet as of the end of July. And that continues on page 17. Page 18, profit and loss previous year comparison. Again, you can see there the increase in our operating revenue. And you can see the increase in our operating expenses over last year. But overall, still changing that position still is very favorable. Any questions on any of that? Page 19 is the summary of the current bills, and the details are pages 20 through 22, and then the credit card statement follows that. Any questions on any of those bills or charges?
Whitmer Public Safety is over 90 days.
Yes, it's actually over a year. They just sent us a statement that was a year old, so we'll get those cleared up. Any other questions?
Questions for James? If not, take a motion to approve payment of outstanding bills.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Move on to unfinished business, CD maturity.
So yesterday, we received the maturity notice on our last certificate of deposit. We have that with Houston Bank currently. The original issue was 350,000. The original interest rate was 0.71%. I contacted them, they'll renew that for 2% for 15 months. I also contacted Central Investment Advisors who've been purchasing the treasury notes from. And as of yesterday, a 12-month treasury note yield to maturity is 3.548%. 1.5% higher than we can get on the CD. So bring it to the board to see if you guys want to withdraw the funds out of the CD or you want to renew it for the 2%. And then if you try to decide to withdraw, if you want to reinvest into the treasury notes.
Because wouldn't Houston offer the same option of getting treasure notes?
They have not offered that option. I don't know if they have investment, but they have not offered that.
We could ask for that, couldn't
Yes, this CD matures on 9/23 though, so we need to make a decision as far as renewing or withdrawing. So we could withdraw the funds and you guys don't have to make a decision on reinvesting at this point.
Then 8 days, I believe, from the maturity date, or 10 days,
Yep,
something
10.
like that, 10 days. And if you, no action, it's an automatic renewal. Pull it out and wait, we're just forfeiting a tiny fraction of interest until we make a good decision.
And it's probably not really forfeiting much because we get interest on all of our deposits as well.
So your maturity date is the 23rd, you say? And we
Yes.
meet again on the 27th,
Yes,
so we can make our decision on the 27th. If you can find out if they, I just like to have the money spread local, you know, you have Central Bank and Wood Houston, and if they got presence in town, it's nice to keep it.
If they can match
They can
that,
match it. If they can't match it, then it goes, I would feel comfortable going to Central with the treasure, with the treasure.
probably not today, yesterday. Yeah. It might be better by the end of the month.
yeah, I mean, it fluctuates every day, but
I think it's gonna tend toward that. But we can wait till next meeting to execute everything, right? More information. Makes sense to me.
Are you good with the table until the next meeting, James?
that's totally up to you guys. I will ask for this to come back.
Yeah, if it doesn't automatically renew and we got the 10 days, then we can table it to the next. And give them an option to match.
We'll table that till the next meeting. In-house billing. Talked about this a lot. Direction is to actually start that process. It's gonna be a long process, but we'll get that's done. Basically decide whether we want to do that.
it'll be at least a year process to get transition to that. And our contract with our current billing company is just renewed on 7/1. So we've got them for a year, basically.
And then we could probably, if we're not ready, get them on month to month.
I'm sure they will.
What's the upside? What's the downside?
There's lots of upsides.
No doubt.
I don't know that there's any downsides. I mean, the upside is we'd have control of what's happening. We have people that actually work in the district that care about what happens at the district doing the billing. I think that makes a huge difference into what happens, the outcome.
So we would be greatly reducing errors and omissions and
That is,
have confidence in our billing.
I mean, we don't have any staff right now to do that, so that's money. You know, that's gonna be a big hurdle, I think, probably. is the
So
staffing of it.
how would staff costs compare to what we're paying for said services?
I'm not sure yet.
That's the whole point of making
Yeah.
this decision, if we want to follow through, so you can get some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can guarantee you the first year, it's not gonna be cheaper, because there's gonna be lots of upfront costs that we have to do. But in the long run, I think there's an opportunity there to increase revenue to the district in a couple of different ways, just by increasing the accuracy of what gets billed. But then once we have ours under control, we might be able to bill for other districts as well, to bring in additional revenue to our district that can't afford to do that, the smaller districts. So
So you're in essence reducing risk.
How many employees we talking about?
So we don't know for sure, but in the past, when we've looked at it, about 2.5 people is what it kind of averages out to be able to bill for the number of calls we have. But as our calls increase, that number of employees increases as well. So
And they'd be combined billing code, maybe both.
yeah, because ours is not
Is it?
difficult. There's 2 lines and
Right.
one ICD to go. That is a generic one. So
But that way, when somebody's on vacation, so have somebody here.
No, kind of the whole point of this. is Tell Jamie to move forward. There's no point in her wasting time putting those figures together if we're not gonna do it.
Sounds like a good thing to pursue.
Do you know what's, are you gonna start by looking at the different software vendors or?
we have done that in the past, and I will do it again, but the software we use for our patient care reporting also has an integrated billing function. Unless there's some huge downside to that, I think that's probably the route we would want to go to keep everything integrated as possible.
And they would do the statements and all those things. Well,
So we should go into this with the intention of taking on additional clientele.
Well,
Become a service provider for other districts.
not to start with, for sure.
But ultimately, when we
It could be.
capitalize the equipment, we should keep that in mind, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's an option going forward. There's other districts that do that. We kind of outsource their billing department as well.
Is it a competitive market right now? How did we end up with the company we're with?
It was a bid process.
The other one committed fraud.
Yeah, but is there only 2 out there?
No, it was a bid process.
So if
had
we
several
decided we
bids.
wanted to compete, would we be jumping into a large pool or is it? Can it be from far away?
Oh, yeah, I mean, our billing company's in North Carolina.
All right, well, I think we have an opportunity to get somebody somewhere. but-
I mean, I wouldn't think we'd want to bill outside of the state of Missouri myself, but
Because the rules are different.
yes.
Well, we talked about this for several years. I think it's a good thing to be pursued.
Yeah, it was in our strategic plan for 5-year plan, but we're almost a year into our plan, and it's gonna take a year, so.
Yeah, we'll do that 5 years. by the time we actually get there.
Operationally for the district, I just want to throw in, it's, when we build something now, it goes through our reporting software, that you understand, and everything has to be exported, and it's a one-shot export. So if there's a problem with that report that either they find or we find, it's sometimes weeks before that report can be fixed, before we can get it back to the crew. If it was a part-time person, I can't work on anybody else's report. So logistically and just as far as compliance and just workflow, it would improve that tremendously because they'd be right there, easily fixed at any time.
Yeah, if you need a signature, you can get a signature.
Yeah.
You know,
We don't have to find out.
that was in the billing, you know, that was one of the biggest things, is signature.
We've actually had in the past, people go out on the plane, you know, with National Guard units, when we needed a report fixed, and they were, you know, in Iraq or whatever, so that's.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. it's Just one.
Do you want a motion for that?
Yeah.
I'd make a motion that we permit Jamie to pursue all avenues necessary for bringing in an internal billing.
Second.
I second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Administrator and CFO job descriptions. Those on page 29. Which one thing here on Eric's that I see is to recommend to the board of directors the hiring of personnel. We don't approve those.
One thing maybe on the chief's job description, since we have added a strategic plan, maybe we could get like monthly updates on where we're at on the strategic plan or quarterly. Just have that as part of the reports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could build some of that language into it.
I don't know if that was in your job description.
Yeah, I didn't see anything about this strategic plan. Additions or corrections, anybody see? There's no other additions or corrections. I would take a motion to approve these job descriptions.
Do you see anything that needs to be added to this?
No, and I've looked at it. I guess it's, the disclaimer is probably in my mind, one of the most important things in there, and that's because it gives the board the ability to be flexible, to add or duties as needed. There's gonna be some things that change just depending on how the district is structured, even with in-house billing, if just one example. That it gives you guys the ability to modify that as needed to fit whatever's being done. So that to me is, I like being flexible. There's a lot of other very small to very large details in my day-to-day stuff as far as things that I'll handle, but all of them pretty much fall under this category.
Regarding the CFO, what is the advantage of being a certified CPA versus just an experienced accounting person? What is it, the CPA certification provides that is essential or non-essential or desirable? I'm just curious.
I mean, there's required training I have to go through every year to maintain my certification, which is like most people that are licensed. I got to maintain 40 hours of CPE every year. I can pick what category that's in. That helps us stay current with what the current rules are with financial reporting. And then mostly the CPA gives you a vast knowledge base to be able to do all the things, to know what the auditor's going to ask for. So that's why I have a clean audit, because I know what she wants to see.
But it doesn't give you the authority to sign something that somebody that's not certified signs or something like that.
But it does, but not only in public practice.
Okay.
Only CPAs can do audits.
Well, I'm
That's
just-
really the,
if you were to leave and we were to hire someone else that wasn't certified CPA, would you think that is a bad thing?
I wouldn't recommend it. Not
So
at the level the district is.
if we were to change strongly referred to required,
I mean, that's,
would that drastically reduce the pool of people we could consider to hire?
you've got a pretty small, you've got a pretty small pool to start with. I don't know how many applicants the district had when
I'm just
the
wondering
position,
why
but-
that.
and I don't know what any of the other applicants.
Normal. I mean,
were.
hospitals too, they'll say CPA preferred. To be a CPA in the state, you had to work for a public accounting firm for 2 years or another CPA. And, if somebody goes in straight into the industry, they don't necessarily have it. So a lot of times now you'll see masters.
But if we were to make that required,
The
that would
accountants
reduce that
graduating now
pool.
have a master's.
To have a CPA certificate
You have.
now, you have to have a master's.
Okay.
So
Wonder how that works.
I do not, just
It's
to clarify, I
changed.
had a bachelor's. Yeah, it's changed.
Are there any other questions? I'll take a motion to approve those job descriptions.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
To clarify, the only changes to the chief's job description for quarterly reports about the strategic plan. That's all.
No new business, so I take a motion to go into closed session pursuant to RS MO 16.1, section 13.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Brown.
Yes.
Fox.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Turkey.
Yes.
Drake.